right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Monday morning, first Monday morning. We're getting back to it and rolling solo today. So I want to talk about the NFC North and how the NFC North fared this weekend in the NFL draft. Who got better? You know, who improved? What is the NFC North going to look like in 2024? I think that there's a lot of questions as to who had the better of the four drafts. Without being biased, I don't know if the Lions had the best draft. And that's why I want to talk about it. You know, I think we had a phenomenal draft. Don't get me wrong. I think we did great. But there's a team that really reshaped their organization in a hurry with a ton of draft picks. Now, not all of them are obviously going to see the field, but a few of them were clearly drafted in a manner, in my opinion, to combat what the Lions have been up to, right? This mischievous behavior of the Detroit Lions of completely tearing apart teams over the middle of the field has been addressed. Let's just put it that way. It's been addressed now. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So good morning to everybody that's in the chat here this morning. We got Lions Talk with the bad guy, Elizabeth LaValle. Hey, Elizabeth, did you check your email? You should have your Fanatics gift card, $150 in your email, so you can buy your new Lions jersey. Casey, good morning. Got Donovan Amos in the house, Thomas Rotundi. And so Donovan Amos says it's a toss-up between the Lions and Vikings. You know, I'm looking at a different team, Donovan. There's a different team that I'm saying that we have this balance with right now, and who I believe are going to lead the NFC North in 2024. Good morning, Deck Peck. Thomas Rotundi says the Bears have the best receiving core, and that pains me to say that. You know, I can't say that I disagree with that, Thomas. The question is, do they have a good enough quarterback? And I know they drafted one, but there's too many questions unanswered with this guy, in my opinion. And Lions Talk with the bad guy says it's way different in the NFC North. It is. It's way different. This could end up being the new NFL. And what I mean by that is the new direction, the new focus, the toughest teams are going to come out of the NFC North eventually. It may not be in 2024. Big shakeup this offseason. Minnesota lost a ton of players. Green Bay, not so much. I mean, they did okay. Bears didn't seem to lose a whole lot. Lions kind of readjusted a little bit. I wouldn't say that we lost a bunch of impact players by any means. So Jonah Jackson is probably the only one that you could say would have been a really big time impact player. And then Josh Reynolds after him, you know, Mr. Consistent. You know, I know he had a couple of drops, but that's not what I mean by Mr. Consistent. Very consistent in his work habits and what he brought to the Lions organization and how he helped, you know, the wide receiver room develop over the last few seasons. So, Angela Gore says it's a bit risky to start Caleb as a rookie. I would normally agree with that, but you're going to hear a different take today on both Minnesota and the Bears as to why I may feel there's less risk this year with a rookie. Is Giovanni Manu going to take Jonah Jackson's place? Not yet. I would say that my expectations for Manu are really low. And we're actually going to have a Canadian football coach on. So we've got Bono that'll come on this week. And then we also have a guy that knows Manu, coached Manu, who will be joining the podcast this week to talk about Manu. So the questions that everyone wants to know is, who is Manu? What is he all about? And not being in the United States, there's not a whole lot of data on this guy. There's not a whole lot of information. So we reached out. And people reached out here, and we're going to make it happen. So we'll have him on this week. We'll let you know as soon as we can get that nailed down. So pay attention for that one, because that's going to be a great show for sure. So let's get into it this morning. Again, welcome everybody into the chat. Appreciate you guys joining me on a non-typical day for the Rise and Grind morning show. But I think we're going to start doing 5 days a week. It might take me 2 weeks to kind of get there, but we'll work it in. So in my opinion, look, it's time to dissect what the rest of the NFC North just did in their attempt to unseat the Detroit Lions in 2024. We know that the Detroit Lions have never won the NFC North, and they finally did. And now everybody's gunning for our heads. They don't want us there. With the 2024 NFL Draft officially behind us now, I want to take a look at what happened and who got better. Did anybody get worse? What's the alignment going to look like for, here in 2024? One thing to me was really clear, though, and this kind of might tell you a little bit about what I feel about the quarterbacks. That the one thing is clear to me that Minnesota and Chicago, they're not making the same mistakes that they've made in the past of throwing a rookie quarterback onto the field with little to no help out wide or in the trenches. So with that said, I think we should start with Minnesota. Before I get into that, Paul Berry says there are no easy games in the division, with or without the draft. Hopes are high in the draft, but most players are projects, so it will take time for them to make a difference. Couldn't agree more. Donovan Amos says that Jordan Morgan that the Packers drafted was getting tossed around by 5th round pick Austin Booker. Austin Booker ended up, where did he end up? He ended up on the Vikings or the Packers? I don't remember now. I think he ended up on, the Bears, didn't he? Yeah, the Bears. I think he ended up with the Bears. Craziness. But I told you guys, man, Booker was not it for me. I felt that he was going to slide. I never felt that he was a 1st round draft pick. From watching his tape, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Good morning, I Register and Zachary Cleary. All right, I'm going to get into this now. Here we go. So Minnesota Vikings added J.J. McCarthy, obviously quarterback, University of Michigan, round 1, pick 10. We kind of thought that J.J. would go top 10. I was considering, 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere in that neighborhood, with Minnesota having to trade up or the Giants trading up with the Patriots. Neither of that needed to happen, really. The Vikings only moved up 1 spot, and the Vikings kind of gave up a little bit of draft capital to do so, to get their man, J.J. McCarthy. And in my opinion, McCarthy, look, he's working with a full Rolodex this season of weapons. Justin Jefferson, arguably considered as the game's best wide receiver. Now, that's no slight to Amon-Ra St. Brown. But if you were to put them neck and neck, I'd say that they're both equally great at what they do. They just both do things a little bit differently. At the end of the day, it's the stat line that matters for a wide receiver, and what you put in for work is what you're going to get out. And clearly we see what Amon-Ra puts in for work. Now, we could stop right there, right? We could stop right there with J.J. McCarthy. But the Vikings also have last year's 1st rounder in Jordan and Addison. So what I meant by that is you have Justin Jefferson for J.J. McCarthy, but you also have Jordan Addison. And let's not forget T.J. Hawkinson. Now, when Hawkinson has a really good quarterback throwing him the ball, he can play. And, he was a pretty damn good tight end. Just wasn't as consistent, as we had hoped. And he definitely didn't blend with Jared Goff, so they shipped him off. Now, T.J. Hawkinson obviously is freshly paid on, the inside at tight end. And they have an offensive line featuring Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. So, look, the Vikings are not throwing J.J. McCarthy to the wolves, so to speak. I don't know if he's really going to have to work to earn, his starting role this year. But if he does turn out to be the starter, I don't think that the Vikings have much to worry about here. He's going to be well protected. They have a decent offensive line. Like I said, he's got this Rolodex of weapons. So he's going to have opportunity to move the ball around, which is going to be difficult for the Lions. And I think that that's exactly why you see the Lions do what they do. They react. I'm sure they react to what's happening in the draft. Now, we hear it from Brad Holmes consistently. He's got his guys. right? He's got his board. He's got his guys. Those are the guys he's going to take. I can't imagine a draft board that doesn't have a reaction component to it. All right, they took JJ. All right, they took the number one wide receiver in the draft. What are we going to do? You know, are we going to take an offensive weapon or are we going to address their offensive weapon? And I think that's what Brad Holmes did, is I think that he said, okay, we're going to have to work on our pass. Obviously, we're one of the worst in the league. We need to bring in some DBs. And that's what he did. So he's protecting the Detroit Lions defense by combating what other teams have done. Whether or not that, you know, that was the reason, we'll never know. But it worked out. So in the second pick there in the first round, good morning, Leonard. How you doing this morning? In the second pick in the first round, 17th overall, Minnesota also took Dallas Turner, big time edge out of Alabama. Now, Turner is a very speedy edge rusher. He has a very quick first step, who has several advanced pass rushing moves and can also pressure the quarterback with a bull rush. Now, I think that Turner's going to have to work on his strength. Goff, in my opinion, is going to have to get the ball out a little bit quicker, potentially. But look, this dude's going to end up going up against Sewell and Taylor Decker. And I think that they're going to manhandle this rook just fine. But you cannot forget about Dallas Turner and who he is and what he's all about. I think that he's a little bit unrefined. As I've said the last couple of weeks, I feel like he's got a really high ceiling that when he comes into the league, he may not put his best display on against tougher opponents, tougher offensive lines. He'll probably struggle a little bit, but you give him a couple of seasons. And I think that Dallas Turner could end up being very similar to the guy that they lost. And I'm only kind of reviewing like the first three picks of the first three rounds. I'm not going to go, into every single pick as far as, who they are, what they're all about. But in the fourth round, pick 108, they took Kyrie Jackson, cornerback out of Oregon. I felt like this was a big time slip for Kyrie. I felt like he went around too late. So good value here for the Vikings to pick up a cornerback. Obviously, they needed a cornerback. Sixth round, the Vikings, they gave up too much draft capital. So they went from 2 first to the 4th to the 6th. And I think that's what kind of screwed up their draft for them as far as, how much better did they really get? I feel like they really got 2 impact players here, Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy. Being a rookie quarterback, you guys know how I feel. It doesn't matter what school they come from. The numbers prove it. A rookie quarterback will barely do anything for the first 2.5 to 3 seasons. And like 1 out of every 20 first round quarterbacks do anything with their career or anything, period, the first 3 seasons. Now, CJ Stroud was that guy last year. So if the numbers point us into a direction, if the numbers are true, then the likelihood that JJ McCarthy is going to do anything this season, probably less than 50%. So I'm not too worried about it. I mean, the difference is, man, that Rolodex of weapons, right? Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. That's the part that worries me. So for that reason, I feel like JJ is probably going to finish in the top 20 for quarterback play this year. It'll be close to it. So that's my preseason evaluation on JJ as far as where he's going to finish this season. And that's inclusive of stats, wins. I don't think the Vikings will make the playoffs, but you know what? JJ's a dog, man. He'll surprise a lot of people. So I can't put it past the guy to put this team on his back and do the right thing here in Minnesota and get this team moving in the right direction. 6th round, pick 177. They took offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, Walter Rouse. Again, in the 6th round, pick 203, they nailed the kicker that we all wanted, Will Reichard out of Alabama, or at least some of us wanted. And then round 7, pick 230, they took Michael Juergens, center out of Wake Forest. I feel like Michael Juergens is actually pretty good center, someone that's probably going to come in and play at the guard position right away. Not right away meaning starting, but that's where they're going to probably fit him in, get him some work early. And then their last pick of the day, or the last pick of the weekend, Levi Drake Rodriguez, defensive tackle, Texas A&M Commerce. So the Vikings traded up twice in the first round. The first time, just one spot for J.J. McCarthy, but their second trade cost them significant draft capital. Still, they got their quarterback and added arguably the best pass rusher in this class with Dallas Turner. And Kyrie Jackson was a solid pickup for their secondary, and Juergens will make a good depth piece as well. The quality of players drafted kind of makes up for the loss in draft capital here. I'm going to give the Vikings a solid B- on their draft overall. And this is not the players themselves. This is how did they affect their team? Did their team get better? Because I can't grade a player until they play in the NFL. We have no idea who they are. When you think about Caleb Williams coming into the league, everyone's thinking, oh my God, the number one quarterback in, college football last year. He didn't really have the greatest year last year, but people are thinking he's going to come in and just be lights out. I don't think so. I'm not willing to say that, this quarterback's going to come in and just do things. They've got to prove it. They've also got to earn the respect of their locker room. And I think that could be a potential problem for Caleb Williams. But we'll get to that in the morning or in a few minutes here. Mile marker 301, good morning. There's a question in here. When does Hawk come off of injury? I'm not real sure. I don't follow the Vikings a whole lot in the offseason. I'll try to find that information for you here real quick, though. So they were talking about his torn ACL and MCL in February of this year. Obviously, it was week 16. So it's a good point there. Is he going to be able to make it back for the beginning of the season? He's got a lengthy rehab, surgically repaired knee, obviously. Who did that? Was that Kirby Joseph that did that one too? He could be back. I mean, it'd be pretty early. Like 2 months early, 3 months early. So they may not see Hawkinson this year. May not. But he's going to be around. He'll be around the Vikings for a while. He's just got paid. So next up, anything you guys want to talk about on the Vikings and their haul this weekend before we move on to the Packers? Yes, I'm saving the Bears for last. Probably should have saved the Packers for last, but the Bears, man, their fan base has been talking. They've been chirping all weekend, and they're going to get a nice little wake-up call here this fall. So that's why I'm saving them for last. Good morning, King SJ. How you doing today? What's the weather like in Toronto, man? It's actually warm here in Michigan. Got to get out and mow the lawn as soon as I'm done here. So Green Bay Packers, look, the Packers completely loaded with young players all over this defense. That is very good news for their first-year defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley. The Packers took the versatile and young defensive lineman, Lucas Van Ness, last season, pick 13. And they continued their run on first-round picks for that side of the ball this year in 2024. They already have Devonta Wyatt, Quay Walker, Eric Stokes, and Jair Alexander in the mix. And for a defense, also sporting Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, and Xavier McKinney, it's easy to see the path to a better defensive campaign here in 2024, especially with the change at defensive coordinator. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that they continued that in this year's draft. It was the offseason that they continued it. So their first pick, much needed pick for the Packers. They went with Jordan Morgan, round 1, pick 25, offensive tackle, Arizona. Man, this guy is physically gifted. Left tackle prospect. That's where I'm slotting that he's probably going to make the move here in Packers camp here. He's definitely going to be looked at for left tackle. He has a nice combination of a well-filled frame, like big man, filled out, solid dude, functional power and strength, arm length, athleticism. I mean, he checks boxes. Morgan uses his arm length very well. He keeps his defenders off of him. First, pop fast hands. He gets hand placement right on. Well-timed punches to sustain the separation between him and the edge rushers on passing plays or in pass pro. He has a strong pair of hands, big hands, strong hands. I mean, he fights with his hands. He uses them well. He can shut out an edge rusher. He can shut him down really with his hand strength alone. Once they're kind of fitted, into this defender and he gets used to them throughout the game, he gets better. Like Jordan Morgan, he just continues to get better. With his strength and quickness of his feet, Morgan can completely take the wind out of a pass rush. This is a guy I would have loved to see the Lions grab. I just didn't want an offensive tackle to be our first pick. But he's not the easiest offensive tackle to bull rush. He's going to give our defense some fits. Now, being a rookie, obviously he's going to have a lot to learn. Doesn't mean that he's going to step in and be a Penei Sewell. Penei jumped right in and was one of the best offensive tackles in the league, his first season. So I think Morgan's going to project very well, very, very well. He's got a very high ceiling, very young dude, playing well above his age and the school that he came from at Arizona. I think that he's going to fit nicely into what the Packers are doing, and it's going to give our defense some fits and our pass rush some fits. So at this point, it looks like Aiden Hutchinson could potentially have his work cut out for him. But hey, Aiden's stepping into year 3. He's learned a few things or 3, right? So I'm expecting Aiden to take that next step and show this rookie, if he does get to start, that welcome to the NFL moment is what I'm hoping to see out of Aiden Hutchinson this year. Good morning, Jaster. How you doing? A little rainy in Toronto, King SJ says, but not too bad. About 10 degrees Celsius, about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't mess me up with the Celsius, man. I still don't know how that stuff. I don't know the conversion in the head. Now, the pick that I really liked for the Packers, I hated it, but I liked it. Edgerrin Cooper. Now, this is where you're going to start to see the Packers address what, in my opinion, the Lions are doing. Excellent speed, linebacker, Texas A&M. So excellent speed and coverage ability are elite. Clearly brought in my opinion, to kind of help where Goff and St. Brown do their work and where Laporta clearly earns his hay or makes his hay, as they say. This is to me a 1-for-1 trade-off. Like, that St. Brown and Goff and Laporta are going to eat in the middle. They needed somebody that could drop back into coverage, someone with good speed, good closing speed, someone that's very aware, does really well in dropping back in coverage, and that's Edgerrin Cooper. By far, in my opinion, probably the best linebacker in this draft. I'm surprised that he lasted so long into the second round, but this is a clear, we've got to fix a problem here kind of pick, and that is the Detroit Lions are the problem. Now, they followed that up with Javon Bullard in round 3, pick 58. Round 2, pick 58. This was clearly a position of need the last 3 seasons and finally addressed it in 2024. As we all know, we sniped Brian Branch from the Packers last season. Now, Javon Bullard is a very athletic safety, great coverage ability too. He's very versatile. And he gives a lot of scheme flexibility for the Packers. He can be used kind of all over the field. He can play both zone and man in coverage assignments, as well as up in the box. The guy's not afraid to go up and tackle. Very aggressive defender. Bullard does a great job of playing from multiple levels and positions. So again, this was another need, and they're addressing a situation. The Lions ate them up, and we ate their safeties up last year. So it's a position of need. It's also, are they looking at the NFC North and saying, this is the division that we have to win? we've got to win the North. Obviously, that's what the goal is for, one of these 4 teams every season. How can they get there? How can they make this offense better and defense better? And they address defense. They went with offensive tackle to protect Jordan Love, who we completely thrashed in the first meeting. Not so much the second meeting. And then they went defense. Well, then they followed it up on offense with their third pick, pick 88 in the third round, Marshawn Lloyd, running back out of USC. This one kind of surprised me because it just didn't make a ton of sense when they made the pick. But the Packers did lose Aaron Jones in the offseason. Now, they did sign Josh Jacobs as well in the offseason. So, in my opinion, this is a pick that is depth only. So, a depth pick, quality depth pick. This is not somebody that is going to get a ton of playing time right off the bat, but he could. I mean, I haven't really looked at their depth chart right now to see kind of where they're slotting their guys, but I would say that this is a depth pick, somebody that, they have for insurance reasons. Could work out to be a pretty good running back. We'll see where that goes, but losing Aaron Jones and signing Josh Jacobs was a big improvement for them already. Good morning, Mike P. How you doing, man? Jaster said, I would have loved to have seen the Lions get Cooper. I think that we could have used a linebacker. We did grab a couple linebackers, and I'm going to do some videos on the undrafted free agents over the next couple of days. I want to make sure that I hit them right and give you guys the information that you're going to be looking for. So there could be some highly edited videos coming out on some of them on information that I can grab, or at least the ones that I feel are here for a reason. Could crack the roster here in September. So, or end of August. Round 3, pick 91. They doubled down. They went linebacker again out of Missouri. Now, this guy is also very exciting to watch. Tyron Hopper, solid coverage linebacker. So again, they did it again. They're looking for guys that can cover in space. So coverage linebacker who could contribute on special teams right away. Has impressive speed and movement skills, which show up the most in man coverage, which is surprising from a linebacker that can play man as well as what Tyron Hopper did. Now, will that translate to the NFL? Maybe. But, like I've always said, the guys that you're going up against in college are the worst type of athletes you're going to see at the NFL level. So the best receiver he went up against is the worst receiver he's going to see, or the best tight end he went up against, is the worst tight end he's going to see in the NFL. Does that make sense? He can also close in a hurry and be an asset as a blitzer on third down. So good coverage speed, good closing speed. The guy's multiple, in the as a linebacker, he can do many things. Should be an exciting pick. I almost kind of like his ability over the middle a little bit better than Cooper, but they're going to have to battle that out in camp. They're going to have to figure out who the best one is here that is going to help them win come this fall. So Packers, look, they had a busy draft, very busy draft, made several trades. They accumulated more picks. They took Evan Williams in the 4th, safety Oregon. They took Jacob Monk, center out of Duke in the 5th. They took Kitten Oladapu, safety, Oregon safety in the 5th, 169 overall. They took another offensive tackle, Travis Glover, out of Oregon or Georgia State. They took quarterback Michael Pratt, 7th round pick out of Tulane, and then another corner out of Penn State, Kalen King, pick 255. So, like I said, the Packers had a very busy draft. They made several trade backs to acquire more opportunity in this draft. They started their draft with Morgan. I didn't really think that this was a reach. Some other, people were calling this a reach. I thought this was a perfect pick for them. I really did. Could he have been available on day 2? Maybe. But if they're, in any way trying to follow the Brad Holmes mantra, which I'm not saying they are, you want to get your guys. You want to find the guys that can help you win. And grabbing an offensive tackle like Morgan was a great pickup. Day 2, the Packers did their damage here. They selected the top linebacker, a solid safety. Day 3 seemed to feature some redundancies as they went back and doubled down on linebacker, and selected 3 safeties overall and 2 linebackers in this draft. So the quarterback, Michael Pratt, doesn't excite me a whole lot. Obviously a camp body, someone that's going to have to work to really try to make this roster as, quarterback 3 or 2. We'll see what happens there. Pretty strong draft class for the Packers. And I want to say that they have the edge right now. I think over everybody in the NFC North. Now I went B- on the Vikings. Vikings had a pretty good draft, but I see only 2 impact players. Now the Packers, really good draft. They took, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys in this draft. And to be honest with you, between Javon Bullard, Edgerrin Cooper, Jordan Morgan, I think that those 3 guys are going to help this team right away. And I'm not even getting into UDFAs today for them or for any team. But those 3 guys, I think, are going to help this team. So I think they found 3 impact players in this draft. And I'm going to hold out hope on Tyron Hopper. Not that I want the Packers to do well, but he could be a 4th impact player that works in as a depth piece as a rotational linebacker, kind of with the second unit. So they could end up with 4 guys that help this team. Now, obviously, as a Lions fan, I don't want to see that happen. So, between Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, they're going to have to do something. I'm giving the Packers a B+, and that is my highest grade in the NFC North. Good morning, Tracy. Jay Malmy says the Lions actually led the league in 2 different categories of pressures. Getting Reader and an upgrade in the backfield should help them turn the pressures into sacks. Great point, Jay Malmy. Great point. Jason says, I was just thinking, Will, with that other GMs or with the other GMs are learning from Brad. But what can you do? That's why he's so quiet. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't want to tell us anything. It's why he really tries to stay away from the microphone. And I think it's also why you don't have certain people in the room asking him questions, because if I was in the room, I would ask questions he's not going to want to answer. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, I want to know, I want to know certain things. Then he can, answer it as vanilla as he wants, but I would love to know more. Good morning. Everybody that just joined, appreciate you guys. So Mike P says Packers' first 2 picks were need picks and did very well. I think that we take their first choice. I think that we took their first choice when we took Arnold. I could believe that. Brent says, question is, how good is the Packers O-line? I think they just improved. Now, we've seen a much better offensive line from the Packers about halfway through the season. They really started to pick up around week 8 or 9. And that's when you saw the Packers kind of make their run. That's when they really started to put some things together. And Jordan Love kind of settled in. Like, he settled down and settled in. And a lot of that is because of the offensive line making him feel more comfortable. Now, that's, a high gloss over of what had happened. I'm not going to, discuss all the stats and the analytics because I don't have that stuff in front of me right now. But if you go back and watch, the last half of the Packers season, their offensive line started to click a little bit. And that's why we had so much trouble with them on the Thanksgiving Day game. Like, we couldn't do anything. We were getting our butts kicked everywhere, offense and defensive line. Now, they came in pissed off, though. They really came in pissed off. Leonard Gonzalez says, morning all. Did we address a spy or keeping the mobile quarterbacks in the pocket with these corners? Because as you know, we got burned all year with no pressure on the quarterback. So I guess my first response to that would be we had a ton of pressure on the quarterback last year, a ton. I think Aiden Hutchinson had the first or second most in the league, right around 102, 103 pressures, I think, during the regular season. And the issue was we didn't get sacks from it. And I speak about this all the time. A pressure is simply moving a tackle or a guard back into the pocket. That's it. So if you move them back like a yard, you've now created pressure. So when you really think about that, well, what did you really do? Nothing. You've done nothing. So for me, a pressure sack is different than creating pressure. If you're driving your guy back, bull rushing him back all the way into the quarterback, and you created a pressure sack, way different than just creating pressure and kind of hanging in your zone and not doing anything, not even getting close to the quarterback. So we got a lot of pressure. So to your point, we just didn't get a lot of sacks. We didn't get, the bigger turnover plays to help flip the field, which hopefully gets addressed this year. To Jay Mommy's point, DJ Reader's a huge upgrade. Mekhi Wingo is somebody that can get to the quarterback through the inside of the defense. And there's been some talk about him also playing a little bit on the outside, which would be nice. He's got some decent speed. I wouldn't say it's, glaring speed by any means. He's got to work on his hands, even though he has pretty good hands. But he definitely needs to work on some of that. So, Brett, appreciate your comment about the interview yesterday with Billy Sims. I do work hard, man. I really do. It doesn't show up all the time because I'm always so busy. And sometimes my shows are a little bit off here or there, but I do work hard behind the scenes to try to get where I want to get for you guys, which is getting those interviews and getting everybody involved to give us the information that we want, that we deserve, that Lions fans are asking for. Brent says Davenport was drafted in the 20s, and he's not old. As long as he stays healthy, I can see him doing a great job. I think so, too. Good morning, Lionized. I think so, too. I would agree with that. We just need him to stay healthy, and we need him to go back to his 2021 campaign where, the guy was darn near elite that season. So if we could just get him back to where he was, through technique and scheme and in the right, training and development from this staff, look, we might have something on the outside this year, on the right side with Davenport. And we're just going to have to wait and see. I think that the training camp is going to be fun to watch. I really do. All right, let's see here. Bespica One, if I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name, but it says, I prescribe to the theory of Brad Holmes. Don't grade a draft until the end of a season. Exactly. I grade it by what they did for the team. I won't grade their players until I see them work for about 2 years, 2 seasons. And then we go back and grade the draft. So Chicago Bears up next. Oh, those poor Bears. I don't know if you guys caught the guy that was with DeAndre Swift on Twitter. He posted a video trying to say that the Bears were going to come back and take the NFC North. When's the last time the Bears have ever done anything in the NFC North? When's the last time that they've ever had a quarterback do anything in the NFC North? Justin Fields wasn't it. Cutler wasn't it. Trubisky wasn't it. Nobody. They've had nobody in like 30 years. They have never had a really good quarterback. Now they've won some games. Obviously, the Lions sucked for basically 30 years. They had some good defenses in Chicago, but they have never been able to really put it together on the offensive side of the ball. So I will tell you, Chicago Bear fans, you got a rookie quarterback. That's what you got. I don't care that he was taken number 1. I don't care if he was taken number 171. He still has to play and play well and maybe not chip a nail. I don't know. You got Caleb Williams. Great. I expect Aiden to be looking over top of him multiple times this year because they failed to address their biggest need, offensive line. So good luck. Caleb's probably going to get beat up too much this year and spend his time at the, La Spa getting his nails done on Sunday morning as opposed to worrying about the game that day. So, yeah, good luck. All right, Caleb Williams, quarterback, though. Here we go. Did the Bears hit it? Did they do it? Only time will tell, like I was just saying. They missed on Justin Fields 3 drafts ago. I don't have any confidence in the Bears' ability to draft quarterbacks. Now, you've got a new GM the last few seasons. Maybe it's different, but it's really hard to imagine, in my opinion, anything really changing here. Quarterbacks in the first round, like I said earlier, it's a crapshoot. We've done the research. I've done the videos on it. I've shown you guys the stats. It's 2.5 to 3 seasons for any rookie quarterback, but especially the first round. Lamar Jackson is like the only recent quarterback to make the playoffs in his first year. Patrick Mahomes is the winningest quarterback out of all of them. And he was drafted in 2015, 16, somewhere in that range. Joe Burrow, he was one of the better quarterbacks that was drafted, and as a rookie played pretty well. Now he's had a couple of rough seasons, obviously with injury. But Jared Goff, 2017 was it? You're probably one of your most winningest quarterbacks as far as playoff record, Super Bowl appearance, next to Mahomes. Those are your guys. And then you got Josh Allen. So you really have 5 guys. Now, Lamar hasn't done a ton. He made the playoffs this last year, but he really hasn't done a ton in the league. I mean, he runs around a lot. He gets a lot of stats, but he hasn't hung banners and trophies. Burrow almost did. So when you go back and look at all the rookie quarterbacks, it's a crapshoot. 1 out of 20 do something in their career as a first rounder. And when I say do something, I mean, like actually be a little bit relevant, make it to the playoffs, perennial playoff appearance, win a few games, maybe get to a title game, maybe a Super Bowl appearance. Goff's already done all that. And he just did that inside 3 seasons in Detroit after a complete rebuild. So again, the numbers make sense and the stats make sense for what I shared. Goff came to a team as a rebuild and in 3 seasons made it to the playoffs and almost the Super Bowl. Don't those numbers kind of really line up with a rookie quarterback? Now, Goff wasn't a rookie quarterback, but he pretty much started all over again. And sometimes rookie quarterbacks, or the majority of times, rookie quarterbacks end up on teams that are starting all over again. Now, that's not what's happening with Caleb Williams, and that's why I wrote what I wrote today, and that is they missed, like I said, they missed on Justin Fields. I didn't have any confidence that they know how to draft quarterbacks, but it's really hard to imagine a better landing spot for a rookie quarterback. Instead of taking a rookie quarterback and throwing him on a team that needs a complete rebuild like the Lions did in 2021, that would have been a really rough start for a rookie quarterback. And when that happens, their career usually goes sideways because they lose confidence, they get their butt kicked, right? They're getting thrashed around and tossed on the ground because their offensive line usually isn't the greatest in a rebuild. And you have all these missing pieces and more than likely a lot of missing weapons to even throw the ball to. So their career gets sideways and hardly ever recover. But this is a great landing spot for a rookie quarterback, just like I said about the Vikings. Williams has Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and now Rome Odunze as his top wide receivers. He also has Cole Kmet as his top tight end and DeAndre Swift as a dynamic piece out of the backfield. Now, you guys know what I feel about Swift. I just don't think he possesses the toughness to stay on the field. And coming back to the NFC North, where he didn't play well, I think we're going to see much of the same from Swift. I'm not worried about it at all. Utilize him more in the pass game, I think he'd be more effective. As a runner, I think the Lions are going to be fine. They know him well. But anyway, Allen managed 108 receptions for 1,243 yards and 7 touchdowns in 13 games last season. DJ Moore, put up 1,364 yards and 8 touchdowns on 96 receptions in his first season with the Bears with Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields was utilized a little bit more, to hang out in the pocket and throw the ball finally. They tried to keep Justin contained a little bit more last year, and it just didn't work in their favor. So let's talk about Rome Odunze. And Rome Odunze, Jim McMahon. Jeez, oh, Pete's, man, that's so long ago. Wow. Well, they had Harbaugh too, didn't they? See, Dak, that's what I believe too, man. I think that Caleb Williams is too wrapped up into his head. Like, there's something just not connected up there. He's too self-absorbed, and we know that self-absorbed people push a lot of people away. They have a lot of trouble, it seems like in society, like they just can't get along with people. So round 1, pick 9, Rome Odunze, receiver out of Washington. Look, he's an all-around receiver. He's built for this next level in the NFL in terms of his size and his ability to generate separation. Odunze has great size, 6'3", great speed, 4.45, elite ball skills that make him a very enticing option to add to this, receiver core that they already have with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Now, Odunze is coming off of back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with Washington, including 92 catches for 1,640 yards and 13 TDs in 2023. I mean, just an electric receiver. He was my top receiver in the draft. I had him ranked over Marvin Harrison. Arizona picked him up, whatever. But Rome Odunze, in my opinion, is going to be the best wide receiver in this draft. The problem is he's going to Chicago. So I think that we're going to see Rome Odunze develop when he leaves Chicago. Like, that's when his career is really going to take off, unless Chicago somehow gets a different quarterback. But you know what? Before I speak too far out into the future, we just don't know what we have here. We just don't know. You got a rookie quarterback and a rookie wide receiver. That's a great position to be in, to have somebody to grow with. But they didn't really address their offensive line to help Caleb Williams stand in the pocket. If Caleb Williams is going to have to run around, he's not as quick as Justin Fields. He's not as twitchy either, and he's definitely not as big. So good luck going up against this defensive line in Detroit. And now these corners in Detroit, and either A, finding an open position to throw the ball, or B, not ending up on your back. So I think it's going to be an interesting team to watch. I think that they're going to do some great things. Obviously, they're going to have some high flying, plays on the field. There's going to be some action going on. It's going to be an interesting offense. But I just think that they're missing a few tools here yet in the tool bag. But that brings me to their next pick, which was round 3, pick 75. Kyren Amagaraji, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Amagaraji. I don't know. Kyren A is what we're going to roll with. Offensive tackle out of Yale. So super heady guy, super smart dude. And I'm not just saying that because he went to Yale, but because he went to Yale. Very intelligent guy. But he's known inside, the offense as being somebody that is incredibly intelligent. Very versatile. He plays both tackle and guard, which he did during his collegiate career. And while Jones, the guy that I felt that they really needed to do something about, figures to be the starter for the 3rd straight year, this 3rd rounder could end up pushing Jones because Jones has been that bad. And that's the player that I expected that they were really going to upgrade, and they didn't. I don't know if Kyren is going to have the tools to really unseat a starter in the NFL right now. And I don't think that it's going to be that much of an upgrade if it did happen. or really change in play for the Bears where the Lions are going to have trouble with it. I don't see that happening. They also selected round 4, pick 122, Torrey Taylor, punter out of Iowa. And round 5. Now, like I said, I wasn't really going to talk about all the later round guys, but Austin Booker, defensive end, Kansas. Booker was viewed by many as a 3rd round prospect. That's kind of where I had him going to. He was comped to Max Crosby. I thought there was no way in hell that he was like Max Crosby. But the Bears got him at 144th overall after sending a 2025 4th round pick away in a trade. I can't believe that they sent what they sent to get this guy, but they did that in the trade with Kyron. So, look, Austin Booker, developmental end at best. Not worried about this dude in the slightest. He needs to add a lot of bulk, a lot of muscle. He needs to get quicker. He didn't have a lot of effort when I watched him play. Go back and watch his highlights. I mean, it's almost like he just kind of stood up and like just kind of put his arms out there instead of pop, really popping the offensive tackle so that he can free himself up and get away from those hands and not allow those tackles to get his arm, get their arms on him. He seemed really slow to me. Like his movement was just really slow when he was engaging. Now, when he was trying to work the end, yeah, obviously he was working a little bit quicker. Okay bend, in my opinion. Okay bend. Not bend like James Houston bend, which is phenomenal bend. Hopefully he retains it after that ankle injury. But anyway, Austin Booker, defensive end, last pick of the draft for the Bears. Here's my overall in the Bears. The Bears walked away with 3 players who are arguably the best at their position, at least ranked that way, which is Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, and this punter out of Iowa. It's kind of funny, right? They got a punter that's the best at their position, but we know that a good punter can actually help you win games. And they did this with 5 selections in the draft. Williams, considered to be the most talented quarterback out of this draft and the most talented quarterback that Chicago has ever drafted. That does say something, but now you have to develop the guy and you have to give him the tools to be successful. I don't have confidence in that. Now, the interesting thing is Odunze and Williams were throwing together like the week and a half before the draft. So it almost seems like this was already set up. Like they were going to get those 2 guys no matter what. So they might have a little bit of chemistry already. But this is the first receiver that Chicago has drafted in the first round since 2015. Obviously, we know it's not the first quarterback they've drafted in the first round. They just have never really had any success. Kyron is obviously an unrefined tackle. You could say sky's the limit potential, but we'll see. He's not really expected to contribute a whole lot until next year. But we'll see what happens there with Jones. So at this point, this is how I feel about this draft. Let me address the chat here for a moment. Rick says, I may be wrong, but Caleb Williams, like the kind of quarterback that will blame his offensive line and wide receiver for every bad play and offensive struggles. I could see that happening. Good morning, Tina Schaefers. How you doing today? Casey says, will depth and skill of rosters plus solid quarterback play, Lions and Packers will outpace the Bears and the Vikes considerably. Andrew Hain says, I don't care. I can't see the Bears being better with Caleb than they have been with Fields this year, at least. Good points, guys. Great points. Tracy says you can get the best cornerback, running back, wide receiver, all you want. But if your O-line sucks like the Bears does, you won't get much done. Great point. Great point. Mike P says there's a lot more bad quarterbacks than good ones, and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell both agree that it is easier to get worse at quarterback than it is to get better. I believe in that. J Mommy says maybe sniffing all that fingernail polish is messing up his head. Oh, that's great. Lions Talk with a Bad Guy says, I'm definitely not worried about Swift. His girlfriend's in better shape than he's on the beach working out. And he's sitting there. That's funny. J Mommy, 3 teams in 3 years makes me wonder about Swift. The Lions definitely got better in Montgomery. with Montgomery and Gibbs. Absolutely did. Absolutely did. Okay, so here we go. We'll talk about the Lions next. So grade on the Bears. Look, because they got the number one overall, quarterback and the number one overall wide receiver, I can't deny the talent there. There's talent there. You got a good punter. They got some good value on Austin Booker. I just don't think that he's any good. I gave them a solid B. So that's a B for the Bears. It's a B plus for the Packers and a B minus for the Vikings. And then you got our Lions. And look, at this point, if you don't have a good feel for what Brad Holmes is all about and how he approaches this draft every year, then you're just not listening to him. You just need to listen to the press conferences because he does give you some nuggets. And if you're good enough at sifting through what he's really saying, you can kind of figure out what he's all about a little bit. Holmes has preached best player available approach ever since he's been in Detroit. And offered his take in many different forms on why he focuses on the player and not the position or the position value or depth charts or any of that mess, right? Holmes has moved up the board to grab Terrion Arnold as our first pick in the first round. And Arnold is universally accepted as great value at pick 24, but also the best corner out of this draft. And then, of course, we waited until pick 61 to allow Ennis Rakestraw to kind of fall into Brad's lap. So Detroit Lions, man, selecting Terrion Arnold number one overall. I just love what this guy brings to the table. I really do. And I want to read a few kind of scouting report / statements on Terrion Arnold as opposed to me giving you my take on him. I kind of did that over the weekend. So Lance Zierlein out of the NFL.com says, twitchy man cover corner with outstanding athletic ability and a skill set to bring in ball production at the professional level. Arnold possesses average size, but plays with a desired level of aggression and competitiveness in both phases of his job. He's fast and agile to match up against a variety of receiver flavors on the outside or in the slot. Arnold could squeeze routes tighter from off coverages and limit the yards after catch with a slightly different approach. His closing burst allows him to meet throws at the catch with a natural feel for playing angles and attacking the receiver's hands. Arnold will make mistakes with positioning and lose focus at times, but the athletic traits and nose for the ball create quality upside for him to be positioned as the cornerback one within a couple of years. So Zierlein is expecting Arnold to be cornerback 2 at least this year, what it sounds like, but cornerback 1 within a couple of years. Detroit Den 313. I don't know what's going on there. It's like 6 messages with nothing in it, but welcome in this morning. So then we've got Bleacher Report, scouting department. So this is, I guess, their collective. Positives: smooth athlete with fluid hips and movement skills. Has the twitch and explosiveness to drive out of breaks, able to quick sync his hips and great reactionary quickness, and looks to run routes for receivers. Great top end speed, easily able to run with receivers downfield with very good recovery speed. Few receivers able to get behind him. That's key. So if Terrion Arnold is able to keep the guys in front of him this year, that's a big positive for the Lions. We struggled mightily last year with allowing receivers to get behind us. All those big gash plays that the Lions, succumbed to last year is why we were the worst passing or one of the worst passing defenses in the league. You cannot win games when you're allowing explosive play after explosive play. And it seemed like we didn't even allow the little stuff. It was just big play after big play. It's like you shut them down, you shut them down, you shut them down. It's 3rd and long. Oh, there's a 40-yard play. And then it's, 1st and 15, 2nd and 12, 3rd and 9. Oh, there's a 25-yard play. And it just kept happening over and over and over. And it just didn't make any sense to me. And I kept thinking to myself, is this a scheme thing? Like, are we in the wrong set on 3rd down? Are we blitzing too much? Are we getting too aggressive? Like, when you have the opponent held and it's 3rd and long, your number one goal should be to stand on the line and not allow those guys to get past it. I know it sounds a lot simpler than what it is, but oftentimes I would see our DBs lined up in a way where you're almost giving them the 1st down. You're letting them get too much yardage over the middle. You got to keep those guys closed in. And I felt like we were, and I hate to say aggressive, because when you're in that kind of positioning, you're not really aggressive, but we were almost too aggressive up front. And it was opening up the middle when our cornerbacks were playing way off. And I did not understand that. And I'm hoping it's something that we don't see this year. And I'm wondering if it was a talent thing. We knew that we had problems last year with the DBs. I mean, Jerry Jacobs, he jumped out to a hot start, and then he really cooled off in a hurry. I mean, the guy jumped in an ice bath and just never came out. So that sucked, because, he was really starting to have a bounce back year after a few games. And then he just went in the tank and just disappeared. And then obviously Cameron Sutton was never brought in to be a number one, in my opinion. We were hoping that Emmanuel Mosley was going to be that guy. And then we knew what happened, obviously, with Emmanuel. So we were kind of stuck with a CB2 and CB1. And then CB2 was probably supposed to be our CB4. We just didn't have the talent. And that's why this draft, Brad hit it square on the nail head, man. Excellent job. Because last year we didn't have a number one. Now we have a potential number one in Terry and Arnold. And if he's not this year, he could potentially be next year. And then Ennis Rakestraw, who could also be a number one. They're going to have to duke it out. But he's definitely going to slide into, role number 2 at some point in the future. But for right now, we grabbed 2 starters in the offseason. And now we just back those guys up with 2 more starters. Now, it's eerily similar to what I've been saying for a long time. And it's something that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have also said. But you're only as good as your depth. And in the game of the NFL, you're going to have injuries. It's not if, it's when. In the NFL, you're going to get injured. And if your depth is terrible, then you just blew an entire positional group, which now your opponent can attack. And right now, there's not a team that wants to attack our DBs on paper. Could be or end up being one of the best defensive backfields in the league. And I said that last year, but the guys didn't get out of the gate healthy, and we ended up paying the price for that. So still had an excellent season. And I have to say, as much negative stuff that was said about Aaron Glenn last year, yeah, did we agree with everything he did? No. Did we feel like there was some mistakes made? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, he had a very limited defensive group in multiple groups. We were very limited on talent. And Brad Holmes has gone offense just about every draft. So very limited on talent. And I think what he was able to pull off was actually pretty good. Yeah, might have been 29th in pass defense, but we still won games. And again, if you don't keep a strength to strength, which is your offense, then we wouldn't have had success last year. Because if we're not, a top 5 offense, you can't have a shit defense. Sorry, excuse my language. You just can't have a crap defense. You can't. So we did make improvements last year. We went from, I think we were the 32nd ranked defense to 19th overall. So that's a big improvement. Can we have that big of a jump again here in 2024? I certainly hope so. If we can squeeze into the top 10, man, this defense and this team overall has the opportunity to go the distance. If we can squeeze into the top 10 as a defense, we will have our first real opportunity to go all the way. I'll come back to the chat here in just a moment. So Ian Cummings, Pro Football Network, said Arnold grades out as a blue chip prospect and a top 10 talent in the 2024 NFL draft. Here's my personal CB1. He's my personal CB1 in the 2024 draft class, and especially for man-heavy teams that value run support at cornerback. Arnold has immediate appeal and impact starter upside. At just 21 years old, Arnold has a long prime career in front of him. And with a little more refinement, he can be a true impact starter who specializes in man but holds his own in zone. And he has the slot versatility and playmaking authority to be the central moving piece of the secondary. Moving piece. And I'm glad that he just said that, because that's what I'm envisioning now, is that I'm hoping we are going to see traveling with these DBs. You fixate on the guy that you need to lock down this game. You go do your business. You travel wherever he goes. You're going to be moving big time on this defense. Just like you see motion in offense, you're going to see motion in the defense. If we can get this defense to that level of competency and the right level of talent, it could be unstoppable, especially with the way that we just upgraded this defensive line with DJ Reader. And Mekhi Wingo certainly gives us some options and potential on this defense. May not be immediate 2024, but it could be 2025. And again, that speaks to Brad Holmes and how he's setting up this team for the future. Not only did he bring in guys that can help now, but we have guys that are developing that, are close, and then some that are going to need a little bit more time that are going to develop, by year 3, that are going to give us better depth. You can't win. I've said it time and time again. You cannot win without depth. You have to have it. We've been building depth for 3 seasons now. And this is the 4th season, that 4th draft that we needed to finally get a couple of key pieces. And I can't even imagine what's going to happen next year. Our 5th draft is going to set this team up for probably the next 10 years. If Brad continues to hit home runs, draft after draft after draft, we're going to be set up for a very long time. And like I said, I'll come back right to the chat here in just a moment. So that's it for Terry and Arnold. Look, this guy, I think that he's going to end up being one of Brad Holmes' best picks ever in Detroit Lions history. I really believe that, for his history, for Brad Holmes as a general manager. And I'm excited to see, where this team goes after this draft, because I felt like this was the draft that we needed. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to get back to where we were last year, but I think that we're going to have a lot more success than we did last year. Now, success is measured usually by wins and losses, but I also see success on the field in different areas that maybe were concerns last year that maybe won't be concerns moving forward. And if we're getting better, you just got to let the chips fall where they may. You could play a perfect game and still not win. It happens. The other team was just a little bit more perfect, I guess. Or the ball didn't bounce your way that day. It's tough to make it back to the playoffs. And if people think that it's easy, I would just like to have you go look at previous playoff teams and records and Super Bowl teams and how often they went back to the playoffs the next year or back to the Super Bowl the next year. Doesn't always happen. It happens far less than it repeats. So pick 61, number 2 or second round, pick 61. The Lions double down on Ennis Rakestraw Jr., cornerback out of Mizzou. And this is a great piece, man. Rakestraw is a speedy physical corner who is terrific in press man and good against the run. All the prerequisites to play the position for Aaron Glenn and Brad Holmes. Now, there's been some other conflicting reports that Rakestraw is more of a cover corner, not so much press man. But I'm reading different analysis. So I'm going to dip into his tape this afternoon, and I'm going to see what I see. And when I do my undrafted videos and other videos on all the draft picks, I guess we'll see what I see. And I'll give you my opinion, but we know what they say about opinions. So I thought it was an excellent move. There was really nobody. We went through it yesterday. There's really nobody to reach for here. There wasn't a different position that made any sense. We needed to have not only positional versatility, but we needed to have depth again at a position of need. And with our guys, on 1-year deals largely, we needed to have this depth there now so that they can build into this defense and, continue to be on this defense next year, year over year for the next, 4 or 5 seasons, where some of these other guys won't be. And then in the 4th round, we took Giovanni Manu. He is a very talented offensive tackle, one of the biggest men in the offensive line category this year. A bit of a project. How much of a project we will find out later, maybe this week, when we have a guest that knows all about Manu. And I think that's going to be a great podcast for you guys to join. So look for that information to come out. And then Sion Vaki. I completely lost it watching this guy get drafted. I projected Vaki to the Lions. I thought he was a perfect pick. And I know there's some conflicting opinions here on, is he safety? Is he running back? Is he both? Where does he fit? Now, Brad Holmes said that he loved the fact that this guy, projected very well as a running back and even receiver. That going through all the different workouts was very special and very difficult to do. That he loved his talent, as a running back, and the fact that he was able to do it at such a high level and not having to do it, while he was in college, spoke volumes to maybe the untapped potential that Sion Vaki possesses. But let's not forget about his work as safety. This guy, he takes perfect angles. He's a hard hitter. Very heady guy. He really works his angles in traffic well. I expect him to be a special teams ace for this team. I think that he's going to be a specialist on this team right away. And that's how he makes this roster, is as a special team specialist that could start to edge out some of the other guys, deeper on the depth chart. Then Mekhi Wingo. Fell to the 6th round, pick 189, defensive tackle, LSU. This was a very, very high value pick. And again, you're addressing the need on the defensive line. We do need some depth there. We need some guys to push, Broderick Martin, and make this defensive line even stronger than it is. He definitely has some versatility, working inside and outside. But what did I say this offseason? The path to the quarterback has always been what? Interior defensive line. That has always been the path. So now you've taken another defensive tackle 2 seasons in a row. You've brought in DJ Reader. You already have Aleem McNeil. You have Levi Onwuzurike and Josh Paschal. We have a very gifted and talented group of defensive tackles that now can be utilized in more, versatile positions and roles along the defensive line to create some blitzes and some defensive schemes that are going to allow these guys to get to the quarterback and allow our ends and pass rushers to play cleanup duty if they need to, but to set the edge and not allow these quarterbacks to get outside anymore, to someone's comment earlier. That is a Tyrone Weedleaf says, can Vaki be our Taysom Hill? Perfect projection, man. Great. I'm glad you said that. You kind of stole the words right out of my mouth, but he is somebody that I see that could play a very similar role. How much? I don't know. I don't know if he can obviously fit in as a tight end, but he'll be able to move around. Michael Luque says, good morning, Will. Really like the mix of players who are long-term developments and players who can contribute now. Dave Phipp has to be happy today. I believe that. Let's see. iRegister says, I promised myself that I was going to keep my AG comments to myself until the end of next year. It's going to be tough, though. You know, not a lot of people were happy with AG last year, but if you trusted me even a little bit, I think the bigger question was talent. And like I said, AG can't excuse some of the poor calls and situations that we were placed in, and some of the calls that probably were blown, as to what defense we should have been running. But they're in that position and I'm in this seat. So it's hard for me to really question what Dan Campbell wanted there and what they saw there. They stuck to their guns and they got bit. So maybe some of that stuff gets cleaned up, and has been getting cleaned up since February. We'll see this year, how things change. But this is the no excuse season for Aaron Glenn. He has the players now. You can't say that he doesn't. Is he missing a true right end as a pass rusher? Maybe. Maybe not. And I don't think that would be a big enough excuse when 80% of the rest of the defense is pretty solid. So no excuses this year. Let's see here. Let me wind this back. Brent says the Vikings have Brian Flores that made average players better. AG needs to step it up. Lights just joined us today. Good morning, Eric. Tracy says, I don't think CJ sucked. He was not fully recovered, and it showed in his play. Talking about CJ Gardner? Yeah, he definitely wasn't recovered, but I think that's why he struggled. But he was struggling before he was injured, too. He didn't really get off to a great start. Put it this way, I'm glad that he's not in Detroit this year. Let's see here. Brent says, I believe Dan will use the running back safety for fourth downs and special teams. Be interesting to see what we dial up with Sion Vaki on a fourth down, fake punt or something, or fake field goal even. With all the talent AG has now, there's no reason for us not to be much better in defense. J Mommy says, even during that spell of giving up so many yards in the air, 6 games in a row, they didn't give up more than 21 points. J Mommy, that's a great point. And so let me address that for my final point this morning after I finish what I'm going to say here about the Lions draft class. So the Lions had arguably the steal of the first round when they picked the best cornerback in the draft, Terrion Arnold, at pick number 24. But following that selection with another cornerback, I felt was the exact right move at the exact right time with who was available on the board. Their fourth round picks didn't really move the needle a whole lot. I mean, Giovanni Manu, and that's who I'm really speaking about here is Giovanni Manu. He's, a prospect that's going to need a little bit of time. Sion Vaki does move the needle for me because I think he's a really special, talented, universal tool belt, if you will, and someone that is going to project as that Swiss Army knife on this team that you always need to have one. Remember when I said, forget the fullback, right? Forget the fullback. No more. Like we need a guy on the team that can play multiple positions and someone that is so versatile that a safety goes down, Vaki can play it. A running back goes down, Vaki can play it. You've got that guy now with Sion Vaki. He can go out and catch the rock. He can play slot receiver. So you get a receiver that goes down, Vaki can do it. I love the opportunity here. Now, obviously, you're stepping into the NFL. It's not going to be that easy. So he's going to have to work really hard to make it on the field and do things to help this team win. But then in the 6th round, getting Wingo and Mahogany in the 6th round, exceptional value here. great picks. I think Mekhi Wingo is going to be a player, and I know I say this a lot, but he will surprise some people this year. I think that he will. I think that he's going to be an impact player in his own right. Now, he's not probably going to see the field a ton, but we could see him in some limited situations where he's able to affect the pass and get to the quarterback. So this is a very good draft for Aaron Glenn. He now has a very deep rotation of versatile options spread across his entire secondary. The Lions ranked 29th in net pass yards last season, allowed per attempt, and again finished as one of the worst red zone defenses in the league. Arnold and Rakestraw established the future of the cornerback room, in my opinion, while Emmanuel Mosley, Carlton Davis are riding one-year deals right now through 2024 and 25. And Amik Robertson is signed through 2025. We definitely need to look to the future here, and I think that's set. Brian Branch could see more work at safety this year, like I've been speaking about now for a few weeks. Thanks to these additions in the cornerback room, which only maximizes, in my opinion, the ball hawking ability of Kirby Joseph and that hard-hitting breakout defender Ifeatu Melifonwu. So Glenn loves versatility. He now has more pieces to the puzzle, and I think that puzzle is going to start to fit together nicely here in 2024. Now, my overall grade, you're probably not going to like. I gave it last night. It's not a bad grade, but I gave them a B. So I did not give them the best grade in the NFC North. And I gave them a B because we were kind of limited on where we were picking and when we were picking and how many we were picking. I gave Brad an A+ for his draft moves, being very versatile within this draft, opening up the phone lines and making things happen with Dallas and Philly and whoever else we traded with. Excellent job by Brad Holmes there. A+++. I mean, the guy did an excellent job making sure that we had options. And sometimes all you need is an option to make something happen. And Brad Holmes did just that. So I give him an A++ for the jerseys that they wore on day 3. I thought that was a nice touch and shows the unity of this team for once and what these guys mean to each other and what Dan Campbell means to this team. So excellent job there. But overall, B, we've got 2 guys that I believe are going to affect this roster right away. Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw. Obviously, Terrion's going to get a lot more playing time than Ennis. But I'm going to hold out hope on Ennis. I'm not going to say that, this is a guy that can't win a spot or can't, win more opportunities in the dime package or even in the nickel package. I think that both those guys are going to do just fine. Sion Vaki is my outlier. I think that, he's going to get some time because he's going to be on special teams probably more often than not. And he's going to be that Swiss Army knife that's going to give us some different looks in some of our fake packages and other sub packages on defense. So Mekhi Wingo, the reason why I'm not giving him impact player 1, taken in the 6th round, there's a reason why he fell to the 6th round. There's something missing. There's something he needs development with, but I do like his ability and he may get some playing time this year, but I do believe that, he's someone that's going to take a little bit of time. Christian Mahogany. So he's probably my 4th guy on this roster that I believe is going to make a big leap. He's got big time ability and opportunity to crack this roster and get, some backup offensive line work in this year. So that's really it for me on the Lions. I think they did an excellent job. Now, everyone in this NFC North ended up with a B in some fashion or another. So I gave the Vikings a B-. I gave the Packers a B+. I gave the Bears a B because they got, 3 of the top rated rookies in 3 different positions. And I gave the Lions a B. I would give them an A, like I said, but I'm going to be realistic here. And I'm going to be realistic in that I say that they did a great job. Probably would have loved to have seen a different offensive lineman, even though I like Manu. And I would have loved to have seen a different offensive lineman at that position, or maybe trying to move up into the third round and take somebody else that, maybe could have helped this team out a little earlier, because I think that Kobe Sorsdahl and Awo Sika are just not the answer right now. I'm hoping that Kobe makes a huge leap in his ability this year to help us on the field, but I'm not going to hold out hope until I see it. And I plan on being, at every week of the training camp this year, every day. So, all right. Wayne Rogers says NFC North is going to be difficult going forward. Looking forward to the great games. Brent Lighton says Rakestraw runs a 4-4 flat when healthy. Michael Lukey says Packers did okay late, but they got ragdolled earlier in the draft by not being aggressive. Lions and the Eagles owned them early on. Testia Cold says Syrian has to start. Brent Lighton says Rakestraw was the best cornerback that Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors faced. Watch the film. He did extremely well. Let me make a note on that so I can pull up those games. Game tape. Thank you for the heads up. Let's see. So LSU. Brian Thomas. Neighbors. So to your point there, Brent, who was on who? So yeah, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors. So was Rakestraw on them like the entire game? Did he travel? Do you know? Do you remember? James Burgess. So what are we doing at place kicker? We did get one as a UDFA. So we brought in the Michigan kicker. And look, I think that Boom Boom Bates he's on the radar. He has to be. He's already kicking really well in Ford Field, and he feels comfortable there. I can't imagine that the Lions would not be bringing. I mean, they already reached out, so I'd be surprised that he wouldn't have an opportunity to at least get an opportunity, to interview. I think that there'll be some more guys, brought in. So Bates missed one from outdoors from 58. We know the wind conditions. 58 still a big kick, man. Big kick. Wind it back a little bit. Wayne Rogers says he agrees. I agree with the B grade overall. They gave up a lot to get Manu. If he turns out, then this draft is an A+. I could almost agree with that. I would say they would probably be, still a low A, only because I would have loved to have seen him help us this year. But I'm actually hoping that we don't need him. I'm hoping that we don't need any backup offensive linemen this year, and that maybe we can get through a season healthy. I think that would be insane for us to finally get through a season healthy. It won't happen. It never does. I just hope that whatever we suffer this year, it's limited and it's light, and it does not, impact our offense this year for too long. Savor the Flavor says, interesting that the Lions are picking up two-way players like Vaki and encouraging linebacker, fullback Malcolm Rodriguez. Vaki help for safety, compete with Craig Reynolds. I think that's what that says, Craig Reynolds. And maybe special teams trickery. Love it. Go Lions. Love it. Savor the Flavor. James Burgess says those sixth rounders really could end up being total thievery. They could be. They really could be. Let's see. Jaster says, let's get those subs up for the giveaways. Make sure to share and like. There you go, Jaster. So if you guys don't know, I'll let you know this morning. Worked out a deal with Pro Sports Zone in Livonia. If you guys have not been to Pro Sports Zone in Livonia, please check it out. And also, if you have not visited sportspider.com, please visit sportspider.com for all of your news. Everything that's popping on the draft is on SportSpider. That's sportspyder.com. Check it out. Get all your news in one place. Absolutely love it. Got another bobblehead the other day. I found Slay. And then, of course, Better the Hunt sent me Matthew Stafford, which we opened up last night. Can't thank him enough for thinking about me and sending me a gift, man. That was cool. But anyway, mini helmets like this. This one's signed by Billy Sims. But I'm going to have mini helmets, all different types. So we'll have like the one and done helmet that they did last year. This one. We'll have, they don't have the new helmets out yet in mini helmets, but when they do, we'll get those too. We'll have the salute to service helmets. For Chris Spielman, of course, we have the original helmets, the big face mask, right? We got some of those coming. Got to go original for Chris Spielman. But anyway, we're going to have 12 Chris Spielman, 12 Penei Sewell, autographed, certificate of authenticity included, mini helmets that we're going to be giving away. Every 500 subscribers, someone is going to win one. And it'll be totally random. Obviously, I can't put 500 people on a wheel, but I'll be paying attention to the comments. I'll be paying attention to the chat. And I make my notes just like Santa Claus, makes his list and checks it twice. I'll be making my list of people that are top interactors of the channel. And those are going to be the people that win. And we'll do some other fun stuff too. We'll do some raffles and that so that you guys can all have a chance to win. And we'll do, like $1, $2 raffle tickets, and we'll limit it, so you can only buy so many. And we'll have some fun with it that way too. So that was really it for today. But there was something else that we were going to talk about. And now I'm forgetting what it was. If someone can remind me, there was something else that I wanted to talk about before I finished my I finished my little take there on the Lions draft. And I do have some information on Steel Chambers too. I started writing up my video on Steel Chambers. And I guess to speak to the undrafteds real quick, Isaiah Williams. Here, let me pull this guy up real quick. So Isaiah Williams out of Illinois finished second in yards, in receptions to only Marvin Harrison Jr. this last season. The fact that the Lions gave him a $240,000 guarantee speaks volumes to what they think about this kid. He could be someone that ends up cracking this roster. And as far as the next guy on this list, Steel Chambers, I understand a little bit about what's going on with him and why he slipped. And I'm going to talk about that coming up in a video, potentially come out today, but maybe tomorrow. I kind of have a busy day today. So we'll see as soon as I get it out. The information that I have is pretty good, and we'll break it down a little bit. I don't think I'm going to do highlights just yet. We'll save those for like highlight videos. I'm going to start saving for memberships because they are unmonetized. I'm not going to monetize any more highlight videos because it's just a problem. It's always a problem. And I'm not paying $250,000 for NFL tape. I'm just not doing it. And I can't use scouting tape. You got to sign a disclaimer that I won't use the tape and share the tape. So I'm not going to get in trouble there either. So at the end of the day, I'm going to open up memberships here over the next couple of weeks. And that's where we're going to be able to do one-on-ones and have some time to break down tape and kind of go through some of these things. And that's really going to be fun during the season. So after the season, or during the season, we'll be able to go through each game and kind of pick some things out and identify, what went well, what didn't go well. And I think that'll be great for memberships. So we'll get that rolling here soon. I'm getting feedback off my phone. Someone just said that Williams is the poor man's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Michael Lukes said trick play QB and is extremely versatile. He's taken handoffs end around, screen passes, and has played at every wide receiver position. I think he's 100% making this team. Dude, that's such a great take, Michael. Like, I had a very limited amount of time last night to watch some of his highlights as I was going to bed, and Steel Chambers. That's how I ended my night last night after we hung up. I really like Williams. Like, I really like Williams. And if he can stay healthy and put it together this summer, this Lions wide receiver room, and he's got to play special teams. So did you notice if he played special teams, Michael? Because I don't know if he did. I haven't watched enough tape yet. So I think it'll be fun to see. James Burgess Spielman was an anytime, any era player. Now he's doing great in the front office. Absolutely. Ice cream. I was going to talk about ice cream, Tracy. What? What did I miss? J Mommy's comment about giving up yards in the air. Oh, that's really not helping me. Will, am I familiar with Motor City Mania? Yeah. I used to speak with him back in the day. Last year, I tried to get him to join the network, and then he kind of blew up a little bit, and like his channel disappeared, and then he came back. What's going? I mean, you can message me offline too, but I don't know. Is there something going on with him? Is he okay? So let me find J Mommy's comment here. I don't think I can whittle it down. Give me one sec. See what happens when you start going off in a direction you just don't slow down. You forget. I should have wrote it down. Should have pinned it or something. And if J Mommy's still on and she can remember her comment, that would be great. Oh, okay. Here we go. I found it. So J Mommy's comment was, even during that spell of giving up so many yards in the air, 6 games in a row, they did give up more than 21 points. So look, this is a very good comment, and it falls in line with something that I said last year, and I've been preaching for years now. Your defense is not going to help you win games if you can't keep teams below the magic number. And that magic number is 20 points. You've got to keep teams under 20 points. So Lions last year, let's see. Look up everybody's points per game. So points per game last year, the Lions averaged defensively 23.8 points per game. Huge improvement. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but that is actually a huge improvement over 2022, where the Detroit Lions gave up 25.1. And you're probably like, well, that's not much, right? I mean, you're talking 25.1 to this year. Oh, shoot, where'd it go? 23.8. So 1.3 points. So 1.3 points difference, but here's the difference overall. So now if we make another jump forward this year and we're able to lock down the back end of the defense a little bit more and stop some of those big plays and stop some of those scoring drives, that might get closer to 20 points per game. And the teams that win, right, the teams that have the most success in the league typically do not allow teams to score more than 20. Kansas City, 17. Baltimore, 16.2. Buffalo, 18.7. San Francisco, 18.8. Now, you had some other teams that actually had pretty decent defenses where teams didn't score on them a whole lot, but their offense wasn't good enough to win, more games than what they needed. Tampa Bay, 19.2, New Orleans, 19.2, Las Vegas, 19.5, Pittsburgh, 19.7, Dallas, 20.2, New York Jets, 20.9. So those were the top 10 teams, and those top 10 teams all allowed fewer than 21 points. Till 20 points is my magic number, and you're going to win more games if you can hold teams to that. So the year before in 2022, I think we scored 26.2 points per game on average. So we are only 1 point difference. As I punch my microphone, we're only 1 point difference between offense and defense. You're not going to win a bunch of games when your offense is barely outscoring your defense. Does that make sense? So now when we look at what we did last year, I don't remember the number now. Lions scored 27.4 points per game. So 23.8 to 27.4. We had a 3.6 point differential in points scored and points allowed. What does that equal? A field goal, which means we could win with a field goal. That's all we had to do. In most games, we just needed to win by a field goal. So big difference where you're going from 1 point separation, which actually, I'll get you the exact number now. In 2022, the Lions scored 26.6 and gave up 25.1, right? 25.1. So 1.5. So we more than doubled the difference there between points scored and points allowed. That's big. Chicago had the worst in 2022 as far as points allowed. And in 2022, they had one of the least amount of points scored per game. So they are the bottom 23. The bottom 10 at 19.2. So when you look at the Bears record, they were 3-14 in 2022. Now that's no surprise because their defense was allowing 27.2 points per game, and their offense was only putting up 19.2 points per game. You're not going to win games when you've got 8-9 points separating you from offense to defense. Flip it, right? If you flip those numbers and your offense is doing 27-2 and your defense is only allowing 19-3 or whatever, then you're going to win a bunch of games. Those numbers directly correlate, and it's a stat that I started to look at probably 10 years ago, and I've been following the trends. It was like 17 points before, and then when the NFL kind of made all these rule changes to make it more offensive heavy, more offense centric, if you will, the number went up a little bit. It went up to about 20 points over the last 4 or 5 seasons. So that's where I'm at with it. And now that we're able to develop this back end of the defense to hold these teams on these bigger pass plays, you're going to win more games. Forget sacks, right? Win the game. Like, I don't care about stats. I care about the only stat, and that's the W and the L. That's the only thing I care about. And the only way you're going to get there is by holding teams out of the end zone. So there's ways to get there. Yes, sacks are part of the game. TFLs are part of the game. Fumbles, turnovers, interceptions are part of the game. It's all part of the game, and they all help you get to the end goal, which is winning the darn game. But if you're letting all of these deep passes go, you're not going to be able to get sacks. You're going to be too one-dimensional. It still takes, like, you could have the most elite defensive ends in the world, the most elite pass rushers in the world, and you're still not going to win as many games because it still takes time to get to the quarterback. It still takes 2.5 seconds to get to the quarterback on average, probably a little bit longer than that. And a quarterback can get rid of the ball that quickly. I mean, he can literally take a 1-step drop and just, it's gone. Just toss it up. Go get it. Go run under it. You can do that all game. You'll be successful with some of it. Some of it, obviously, you won't be. Peter Van Larhoven, I didn't see what you said. Let me see. Brent said, Peter Van Larhoven says, Brent Rakestraw has had an ACL and multiple soft tissue injuries. In fact, he had surgery this year and isn't ready to practice right now. We are betting a lot on a player that hasn't been healthy. So his ACL, I think, was in 21, I believe. So quite a while ago. And typically, ACL injury, once it's repaired and rehab the right way, very unlikely to happen again to the same leg. It's just the other one you got to worry about. Now, soft tissue injuries, yeah. So ACL was in 2021. And he's obviously been fine ever since. He had some core and groin injuries, though, that he missed a few games last year. And he might have had surgery, I believe, in the groin. And I think before the draft is when I had spoke about this, and I said that it was kind of a concern to me that you just don't know what you're going to come back with a groin injury or that hernia injury, I think is what he had, the inguinal hernia injury. And those can be kind of tough. I have two. And there's some days when I'm walking, I can't walk. Like it hurts that bad. And even though things have been surgically repaired, it still happened again. So they suck. But injury concerns, right? Braylon Dennis, those are players for us, right? It's too funny. All right. So what else you guys want to talk about? I'm about to jump off here. It's almost 10 o'clock. We did a 2-hour show this morning. Completely unplanned, but we had to do it. Jack 2125 says, will Lions defense keep the run down? Now that the big guy, Bugs Jones, gone out of the middle, seems they made a huge difference. So Bugs didn't play a lot last year. And Benito Jones, look, I do like Benito. I really did. I was sad to see him go. I really liked him as a player and as a person. But Bugs, he didn't really help us. Now, last year, I was doing some of the correlations between when Bugs was in and how many sacks we were getting, and when Bugs was out, how many sacks we were getting. It seemed like we affected the quarterback more when Bugs was in the game than when he was out of the game. But Bugs only appeared in 6 games, maybe 4 games last year. I think it was 6. And there was a couple of games where you couldn't make that correlation. There was a couple of games we actually had our worst defense, which I believe the Ravens was the worst game. So I guess where I'm going with this is we just got way bigger up front. DJ Reader is a top 10 defensive tackle. Ali McNeil, top 15 defensive tackle. And between the two of them, and now adding some good quality depth behind them, as well as some really good corners, I think you're going to see an even better improvement. And it's really hard to go from number 2 to number 1, but our run defense was, second best in the league last year. Pass defense was 29th in the league last year. I think you're going to see that gap close big time. If we can still stay, top 5 run defense and now take that pass defense and get it up into the top 15, you now have a top 10 defense. And I think that'll be all the difference in the world that we need to see. Wingo really wouldn't fit into Bugs' role because he's not the same size, like way different size. And I would say that that's Broderick Martin for you. Martin is going to take over Bugs' role, more the big guy in the middle, the guy that's going to eat up, some of the bigger, bigger double teams and stuff like that. But DJ Reader takes up a lot of double teams too. But Broderick Martin would be that guy. I can't wait to see DJ Reader and Broderick Martin together in training camp. I really hope that Broderick slimmed down this year and made some, healthy improvements. One, with his body and size, and two, with his nimbleness, if you will. He needs to learn how to anchor. Like, he's got to use that weight to his advantage. He was too light on his legs. Like, he was like a big tree, man. You start chopping at the base and he would just fall over. He was moved too easily. And for being that big, he shouldn't be able to be moved like he was. Yeah, there you go. Brad did make a strength even stronger by adding Wingo, 1,000%. I just hope that he can make this roster, man. It's going to be tough. We've got some good depth now. All right, Trace, off to a photo shoot. Perfect, man. Have fun. Good luck this morning. Brent Lighton says that Broderick can become laterally agile. He can be the Ted Washington. I'm not sure who Ted Washington is. I'm sure I do, when I watch, but I just can't think of Ted right now. All right, you guys have been great this morning. It is 9:57 a.m. on April 29th, 2024. A little bit of a draft recap this morning for the Lions in the NFC North. Who made out in the NFC North? Who's going to be the better team in 2024? That's the question that we tried to answer today. The Lions ended up with a solid B grade, and this was just for the type of players that we added to the roster, not necessarily player grades. We're not going to, measure the draft success until we see these guys play. But as far as addressing the needs on the team and where they pick the players and the moves that were made, I think that Brad Holmes did an excellent job here. Addressed the back end of the defense, which I believe is going to make all the improvement in the world for us here in 2024 and allow this defense to take that next step forward. I do believe the Lions will probably be active for a pass rusher next season, 2025, and allow this team to continue its depth rotation and what I call the roster roulette. And I think that's what you guys can expect next year out of Brad Holmes, is my guess now. But we'll see as the season wanes on and if we have injuries or, players maybe just don't work out, all of that can change next year. Minnesota Vikings got a B- from me for the players that they added. I think that they added 2 impact players, JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. I think that JJ is going to have a long way to go in his way to being an impactful player, but I still believe he's an impactful player because Minnesota needed a quarterback, and they got a quarterback. Dallas Turner, obviously the best overall edge by many in this draft, including myself. I think he's a perfect fit out there, replacing a big-time need after watching Daniil Hunter exit. Minnesota has now added Dallas Turner to what is potentially the best linebacking core in the NFC North. It's going to be a very tough defense. I'm not looking forward to taking on the Vikings, but I just don't think their offense is going to be able to beat us this year with a rookie quarterback. The Green Bay Packers, I gave them the best grade out of the NFC North with a B+. They had a ton of picks. In my opinion, they got at least 3, if not 4 impact players. Jordan Morgan is going to help anchor that offensive line. He's going to give Jordan Love the protection that he needs. As we know, they struggled with that the majority of the season. Edgerrin Cooper, great coverage linebacker. Again, somebody that's going to join this defense that is going to give the Lions some fits with his coverage ability. And Javon Bullard, another safety that the Lions have been waiting to have on this team for now 3 seasons, at least. In last year, the Lions fleeced the Green Bay Packers by taking Brian Branch. So looking forward to seeing those players develop and what happens. Obviously, I don't want them to develop too well. But then you have Tyron Hopper here for the Packers, taken in the 3rd round, linebacker out of Missouri. Again, another really good coverage linebacker, someone that could help contribute on special teams right away. But very impressive speed and movement skills. Should be interesting to see there. Chicago, they got my worst grade. Well, not really my worst grade. Even grade with the Lions at a B. And the reason why is they grabbed 2 impact players and 3 that are, top ranked at their position. Caleb Williams at quarterback, Rome Odunze at wide receiver, and their punter, Torrey Taylor out of Iowa. I'm not concerned about Caleb Williams one bit. I am concerned about Rome Odunze. He is going to be a very tough player to corral, especially in an offense that already has DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. It's going to be a very vicious wide receiver core that this Lions, new Lions defensive backfield is going to have to put the screws to and slow them down. And then you've got the Detroit Lions. Clearly addressed the biggest need of this defense after 2023 had provided us with the worst passing or one of the worst passing rated defenses in the league. And after ranking in the top 2 for run defense, this was clearly a need. And somehow Brad Holmes managed to do this by taking best player available. Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama, instantly upgrades this defense, somebody that should get a lot of playing time here in 2024. But as Brad Holmes said, he's going to have to earn it. And with the demeanor of Terrion Arnold, I expect nothing less. And then you have Ennis Rakestraw, someone who's still coming back from some soft tissue injuries and should be an impactful player as long as he's healthy and ready to go by training camp. I expect him to fill in nicely as a depth piece and provide great competition in the room. And then Giovanni Manu, selected in the 4th round, not so much of an impact player here in 2024, will require a little bit of learning as he goes in development over the next season or 2 before he really helps this offensive line. But Sione Vaki and Mekhi Wingo, I think, are the 2 players to watch this year. They're going to be very interesting developmental prospects. Sione Vaki, definitely a Swiss Army knife style of player at safety, running back, even slot receiver. Should help this special teams out greatly. Be utilized in some sub packages and even a little bit of trickery we might see out of Sione Vaki. So great draft all the way around. It gave the Lions a B. Look, they got Christian Mahogany in the 6th round. Steal of the draft potential here, along with Mekhi Wingo. Mekhi Wingo is someone that can play inside, outside on the defensive line and should give some offenses fits, depending if he's going to get some playing time this year is the question. So exciting draft, phenomenal work by the city of Detroit, breaking the NFL draft attendance record. And what a way to represent the city and Michiganders as a whole, man. We really stepped up. What an excellent week in Detroit. So it was fun. That's all for this Monday morning edition of Rise and Grind Morning Show. I appreciate everybody in the chat. You guys did an excellent job joining me today. And we'll see you guys all tomorrow. Take care. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.